Are you ready? Let's go!
Don't you sometimes just want to talk about everything? You know, there's days when you can just talk about anything. Need to sit back and chat about nothing at all? Nothing but Julie, coming at you with fun and creative topics and interviews.
Did you hear Julie's podcast? She's got the greatest topics.
Come join the chat about everything, anything, and nothing. So unwind and tune in to Nothing But Julie. Great topics and cool interviews with some pretty awesome people. And now, without further delay, here's Nothing But Julie.
Hello and welcome to Nothing But Julie. This is your host, Julie Schrager, and welcome and thank you for joining me today for Wednesday's podcast. I was looking through my list of topics and was thinking to myself, what would be something fun that I could talk about today, something where it could be engaging and something that I think that we've all been through. And it occurred to me, I should probably talk about my most embarrassing moments or life's most embarrassing moments. I mean, they happen to the best of us. They happen to all of us, right? There's not one person that has lived on this earth and has not had an embarrassing moment to talk about. Those toe-curling moments where you just have that awkwardness. And I am going to discuss several of those today because I feel as though the ones that I have chosen, I know that some of you have gone through it. So let's just go right into it, shall we? Okay. So have you ever gone on to, let's say, social media, let's say Facebook, and accidentally liked a Facebook status, and you were maybe like on a public page, but you didn't want to like it? But if you're on your iPhone, your iPad or whatever, that's what happens when you're on there and you accidentally click on it. But you did it and thought, oh, nobody would notice. If you went back and deleted it or unliked it, but people did notice. I mean, that's not so horribly embarrassing, but it's happened to me a couple of times before where I just maybe wanted to read an article, and unbeknownst to me, I would, click on the like button. Anyway, moving on. So you're in line at the grocery store or the supermarket, whatever you want to call it, and you swipe your debit card, and guess what happens? It comes up, declined. That has happened to me a few times before. And you have that the stomach churning feeling, and people that are behind you, and what are they thinking? Oh my God, they're thinking I have no money, and it's hysterical when, things like that happen, because it's happened to many of us. And the scenario is that you don't have money in the bank. You're exposed. But has that ever happened to you? And the people that are standing there are thinking, not out loud, and you can only imagine what they're thinking or what they're saying. That happened to me a few times, and it's happened to me when I was standing in line and other people's cards were declined. And I remember the last time it happened, it would happen at certain places and not happen at others. And I needed a new debit card because that security thingamabob, when you slip the card into the machine, I guess I used it one too many times, and it was very scratched and it wasn't being read on some of the card reader machines. And so I remember that one person had said to me, "Are you sure you have enough money in your account?" And I was like, wow. She actually really went there and said that. And I was like, yeah, I've got money in my account. It's it's just the card. Well, I remember I was at a local deli, and I went to buy a toasted bagel with butter. That was it. It was $3, and I had to use my American Express because I had no cash on me, and my debit card got messed up. But anyway, that is an embarrassing moment when you swipe and you wait for it to say approved, and it comes up not saying approved. So I don't know. Okay, has this ever happened to you? It has happened to me, I think, far too often when you push on a door with such fervor to go inside, and you're supposed to be pulling it, not pushing it, and you wind up completely embarrassing yourself, and then you walk in and act like, it's no big deal. When you know that you look like a schlump and everybody is looking at you like a schlump. Sometimes there's not a sign that says push or pull. So you have this 50-50 chance of opening the door correctly. So I have learned, in order to not completely and totally embarrass myself, that the best way to do this is to very slowly get towards the door and, let's say try pushing it first and then pulling it, but doing it in like a slow-mo kind of way. Oh my God, I have embarrassed myself so many times doing that. Okay. Have you ever, this is me, made eye contact with someone, and as soon as you make eye contact with them, you look away really quick, and all you're doing is thinking, oh my God, now they think I like them, or, they think I'm weird, or I'm a stalker. Has that ever happened to you? What about, have you ever had to do a number 2 in a public bathroom or in your workplace? And I mean, you do everything you can to not stink it up. But meanwhile, you know that there's people outside the door that need to go to the bathroom. This happened to me once before. I had to go to the bathroom so bad. And I do not like going to the bathroom at my workplace or in social places. But, I really had to go. And I did everything I could not to, make it stinky. And I wanted to wait a little bit longer as well before I opened the door, but then I'm like, oh my God, they're waiting right outside the bathroom door, and they're going to be like, I've got to go. And then you walk out, and all you're thinking about is, again, making that eye contact with someone, knowing that they're about to enter a foul-smelling bathroom, because you know that they know that you're responsible for it. You can't say, oh, it was the person before me. Yeah, when I was younger, I used to go, you might want to hold your nose in there. The person before me kind of stunk it up, but it was really me. Has that ever happened to you? It's such an embarrassing moment, even though we all do it. Another thing that I remember that was embarrassing for me, but also made me very self-conscious when I was younger in high school, was being in a classroom and my stomach grumbling or growling really, really loud. I used to think that, I had some kind of a problem. My mom even brought me to a gastroenterologist to see if I had a problem. And it was just that I was hungry. Yeah, duh. But I wasn't hungry. Like, when your stomach grumbles, but you don't feel hungry. So I remember being in a classroom and my stomach would grumble, and I know everyone's hearing it, and you're trying to act like, it's no big deal. Well, as I found out when I was younger, I was chewing so much gum when I was a teenager that it actually fakes your stomach into thinking that you're hungry, and it has to do with the brain and thinking that, the chewing motion somehow indicates that, you're hungry. Regardless, I not only stopped chewing gum at a young age, but I would then start bringing snacks. But it happened when I was older too. The silent room stomach growls. Ugh, that has happened. And I remember when I was younger, I would think, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to get married because my stomach is going to grumble and he's going to think, that this I'm a pain in the... So your stomach has definitely grumbled before or made those loud noises. It's happened to all of us, okay? It has happened to all of us. Okay, another embarrassing moment. Have you ever started a conversation with someone where you would possibly mention someone else in the discussion, not realizing the person that you are talking to was friends with the person you were talking about, and now you have literally screwed yourself, and you know that your friend that you're talking to is going to go to this other person and tell them everything that you said, and it's going to start World War III? Has that ever happened to you? That's happened to me. I don't talk behind people's backs, but it was actually something that happened recently. And I was speaking with a friend of mine and happened to discuss someone else that I knew who was using me to walk their dog, only to find out that, she was not in a good place with this person, and was, very upset to find out, that I was watching the dog and didn't understand why she wasn't using her, and so on and so forth. And I was like, that foot in mouth feeling, but I didn't at the time feel embarrassed. I felt like, like, oh my God, what a small world. But then I suddenly started to feel a little bit embarrassed, because now I'm talking about this woman and she's going to go back to her and whatever. But that was a little bit embarrassing. Okay. I have had this happen to me where, and live and learn, where I've confused somebody with someone else, or mistaking somebody's belly for pregnancy. That's happened to me before, and it was a very awkward and uncomfortable situation where I very rarely call people by their name, especially when I'm not 100% certain. And there was one time when I saw someone and I thought that I knew their name for sure, and they were like, no, that's not me. You're thinking of someone else. Okay, slightly embarrassing. But what about saying to someone, oh, how far along are you? And they're not even pregnant. Again, live and learn. When we're younger, we have a tendency of opening our mouths and saying things that we really shouldn't. And, I guess you just learn from those mistakes. And as I've gotten older, not only do I no longer, call people by their name, because if I'm not totally sure about it, but I certainly would not say anything about them being pregnant when they're not. But I'm telling you that the person that had this belly, it was a pregnant belly. You know how you could just tell? I don't know. All right, moving on. Have you ever been at the gym and fallen, maybe on the treadmill, or tried to look really smooth and cool at the gym, like you knew what you were doing, you had no idea, and you wound up like looking like a total idiot? Has that ever happened to you? I was on the treadmill forever ago at a gym, and I decided that I was going to start running, and I wound up going way too fast that it was much faster than I can handle. And I wound up almost falling because I couldn't keep up, but I did not want to slow myself down because I'm in the middle of these people, and I felt like an idiot, and everyone next to me is running, and I cannot run anymore. I used to. I still have shin splints, and if I were to try, I'd be in a lot of pain. So if I'm going on the treadmill, I won't run. I will, just walk. And I'm like, screw it. I'm going to go, do the running. I wound up going so fast, my shins were killing me, and I literally could not slow it down because I couldn't get my finger to stay stationary on the button to slow down. And so I caught myself, but another second and I would have fallen. But I, put my 2 feet out on the side of the treadmill and then slowed it down. But I know that's happened to you. I know that you've been at a gym and things have happened to you before where it was an embarrassing moment. Okay. Have you ever sung or were talking to yourself while you were in your car on the road and you just got so into it that you didn't even know that like the world existed around you. Then you turn your head and you see someone looking directly at you. That still happens to me. I can find myself talking to myself in my car and my windows are tinted, but still, nonetheless, I will still be talking in my car. And I know that people can still see the motion if they're really, truly looking. But you then kind of pretend that, you're on speakerphone and start making yourself look more dramatic and animated as though you are talking on the phone. Sorry. I just thought that's more funny than embarrassing. Okay. Have you ever, and this happened with me and a friend, spilled a drink of yours, like if you were at the bar and you had wine or an alcoholic beverage? I had a martini and I wound up feeling the effects of it after just one. And so I was like, screw it, I'll have another one. So I did. I had another one. And as I went to go take the other martini, that the glass was filled up to the rim, I took it, and because I was a little bit tipsy, just a little bit, part of the drink fell out onto the counter of the bar. Now, it doesn't seem like such a big deal, but when I was there, I was with a guy that I graduated high school with, and I was so embarrassed because it spilled. It was like, it looked like a drunk person, taking a drink, and the whole thing started to spill. I thought I was going to die. It was just, it was like a major foul. Okay. Some of these things I think are really cute. Have you ever held in a sneeze because you were in a movie theater, temple, church, a quiet area, a quiet venue? Has that ever happened to you? What about, have you ever sneezed and farted? Me, I got my hand up. Yes, it happened to me at work. I sneezed. I didn't even know I had any gas. I mean, I felt fine. And then out came the fart. And this is a very small office space. And this one jerk, he was a jerk, says out loud, "Julie, did you just fart?" I didn't even have a second to make up a story before he had said something. And I was like, no, I just sneezed. Well, thank God the fart did not smell because I could at least get away with it. But I did. And it was not a very quiet one that kind of slipped out. And you're in a very small office space. It's so embarrassing. That was so embarrassing. And yes, I would still be embarrassed to this day. No matter how old you get, I still think that when things like that happen, it's embarrassing, Okay, let's move on. Another embarrassing moment. Have you ever had to poop so bad it literally became a code red, and you might have pooped a little bit in your underwear? Has that ever happened to you? That happened to me when I was pregnant, and out of the blue, bam, I had to go, and I was in the car with my husband, and we were not close to home, and I would not go into a public restroom, and a little teeny bit came out. Has that ever happened to you before? Now, if it's happened, has it happened in an embarrassing way, like you were with somebody or with a group of people? Has that ever happened to you before? I'll tell you something. Sometimes when these things happen, it's best when it happens when you're either alone or well, then it wouldn't be embarrassing, or happening with someone that really would not care. But okay, now this one has happened to me. Have you ever gone to the bathroom and walked out with having toilet paper on your shoe, or toilet paper like tucked into the back of your shirt? So it's happened to me, and I didn't even realize it, and I was using the bathroom, and I had to go pee, and I put the thingy, the liner thing down on the toilet, And without realizing it, I left, but I didn't realize that I had pulled up my pants. And as I pulled up my pants, I also pulled up the stupid toilet liner. And thank God I had such a nice coworker who was so sweet. And she, whispered to my ear, Julie, you might want to remove blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh my God, I am mortified. But I backtracked, which is what we sometimes do in an embarrassing moment, to think, was there anybody in the hallway that had seen this? And it was in between classes. No one was around. So thank God I was only embarrassed with my coworker, but she was so sweet about it and we just laughed it off. But has that happened to you when, you have a piece of toilet paper on your shoe, or you might have accidentally caught a piece of toilet paper that you might have laid down on the toilet? What about tripping in public? You trip and you're like, oh, yep, meant to do that. And you just keep walking oh, you totally meant to do that so you don't look embarrassed. Has that ever happened to you? I've tripped in public. I've tripped and fallen. I've tripped and not fallen. That is probably one of the most embarrassing things that can happen, because you do not know how to recover from something like that. That's a complete fail. Okay, another embarrassing moment. Have you ever waved to a stranger thinking that it was your friend? Or waved to someone who you thought was waving to you, only to find out that they were waving at someone else? Yep, that's definitely happened with me. Oh, one of life's most embarrassing moments, I tell you. The worst thing that can happen is when they actually wave back. Can you imagine? Actually, if you're single and the guy or the girl is cute, it might actually work out. For all the women that are listening, have you ever worn a skirt to where the wind would blow it up? It's amazing how many of these embarrassing moments have actually happened to me. That actually happened to me. It was like a Marilyn Monroe moment. But it was a very windy day, and I don't know why I was wearing a skirt or a dress. It must have been a certain occasion, because I will never, ever, ever wear skirts. It's just not, who I am, unless like I said, I have a special occasion I have to go to. But that's happened to me before. And ladies, this one's for you. The quintessential embarrassing moment that has happened to every person in their life, no matter how small or big. Getting a period stain on the back of your shorts or the back of your pants, where it's quite clear and everybody could see it, even if they weren't looking. That's happened to me. It's happened to me often. It also happened to me at work, and a lovely woman had told me that I had it. I was in my 40s when this happened. So I was very grateful it was another woman, and she was very sweet about it. When I was working at a high school, it happened so many times to some young ladies there, to where their mothers would have to bring in another pair of pants or a jacket or a sweater to put over that stain. One of the wonderful, wonderful things about being a woman. Have you also ever been caught short with money? And it kind of is like the debit card thing. But before there were debit cards, and yes, there was a time that there were debit cards, and there was a time when, I would get paid, and there wasn't even direct deposit then, and I would have to take my paycheck, go to the bank, and I would deposit a certain amount of money into my account, and then I would have a certain amount of cash. So there were times when all I had was cash, and I went somewhere and I was short on money, and I would not use a credit card. I would not have a debit card. Has that ever happened to you? When you're, $1 short or a few dollars short. That's happened to me before. But now there's so many backups, if you want to pay with cash and you don't have enough, you can use a debit. If you don't have enough money in your debit, you can use a credit card. If you don't have any more of a credit limit, well, then you're screwed and you have to deal with the fact that you have to tell them to void out the whole transaction. Have you ever been at a friend's house or at a party and you go to the bathroom and it won't flush? Yeah, that's... Ugh. It's not only an embarrassing moment, but it's also like, what do you do? Do you tell the owner? Do you just walk out and hope that nobody else is standing there needing to go to the bathroom and you can make a clean escape so no one knows that you just went to the bathroom and it couldn't flush? I don't know. What's the best thing to do? I don't know in that situation. That's something that I have never experienced, but those of you that are listening, if you've experienced it, what would you do? Would you keep trying to flush? Would you just walk out? Would you tell the owners of the home? I don't know. Okay, this has happened to me, I think, at least 2 times before, where I have texted the wrong person. And luckily for me, what I wrote was no big deal, and I just had to say, oh, sorry, accidentally texted you instead of so-and-so. Hope you're doing well, whatever. But the thing of it is that I remember the one time that I had done it. Well, I did it 2 times, but the one time that I did it, I had texted a person that I hadn't spoken to in years. In years. We just lost touch. And then I text her, and I'm like, oh, God, now what? Now I have to explain this to her. So I was just very quick and said, oh, sorry about that. Hope you're doing well. But she didn't even answer me. And I felt even more awkward. But has that happened to you where you've texted the wrong person and maybe that particular text should not have been seen by this other person? Another thing that's embarrassing but also a pet peeve of mine is when you click reply to all accidentally instead of reply. That actually happened to my husband a short while ago where he accidentally clicked reply all and he had sent a personal or private email to someone and it wound up going to other people that shouldn't have seen it. Again, it was an unfortunate mistake, but I wish that they would separate reply and reply all like far from each other so you can't make that mistake. Or, I don't know, have like big letters saying reply all, because that could be a very unfortunate event when you wind up doing something like that. Has that happened to you? I have been in this situation before where, all right, let me, all right, I'm just going to say it. The nip slip. Women, ladies, have you ever had this? Have you ever had your nipple accidentally slip on out? You think you're well contained. You think everything is fine, and then all of a sudden, boing, something happens. Well, that happened to me when I was wearing a 2-piece bathing suit forever ago, because I won't be caught dead in one now. And I remember that I had bent down to pick something up, and, well, you can just figure out what happened next. I had no idea that I was exposed. And who knows how long I was like that until my husband was like, Julie, like your whole boob is sticking out. And I was like, oh, shit. And I'm now again backtracking, trying to think, okay, how many people just saw that? And then I was like, do you really think that if anyone saw it, they really gave a shit? Like, was it really a big deal? I was more embarrassed than anything. Has that happened to you, ladies? And when it did happen, did you care? Were you ever walked in on as an adult or as a child by a parent, by a child? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That not only happened to me when I was a kid, but it happened to me as an adult from my child, seeing my husband and I. And you do your best to cover it up and, make an excuse. Meanwhile, you probably mess this child up for the rest of his life because of what he just saw. Oh, God. The things that happen to us in our life, I'm telling you, you can write a story about your life and the embarrassing moments. Have you ever teared your pants or torn your pants? Yeah, that happened to me. I had my most favorite pair of jeans. My most favorite pair of jeans. And I wore them until their death. And their death came when, like the inseam, it just was worn out after so many years of wear and tear. And I was I don't remember the exact act, but I do remember the tear and I remember the sound. And I also remember I was not at home. So I remember being out somewhere and all of a sudden the whole thing tears. And I honestly cannot remember what happened after that. But I can assume that it was an embarrassing moment for me had I been around other people because, well, I mean, it just happens. I think it's just one of those things where when something like that happens, oh, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the time when I was wearing a G-string. Yeah. I mean, I very rarely wear them, but I was wearing a G-string and I had a red one on. And I was wearing, those hipster jeans that I absolutely hate. And I was at a house party and needed ice. So my friend told me that I could go into her freezer and get some ice cubes. And she has, the pull-out freezer on the bottom. So I had to bend down and grab ice cubes. So what happens? I bend down. Apparently, down go my pants, and bingo bango, there is my exposed G-string that is now being photographed by several men and women. How long was I sitting, squatting for? A few seconds? So I'm now being told by so many people that is your favorite color red, Julie? Ha ha ha. And I'm like, what are you talking about? The next thing I know, it was like ding, ding, ding. Everybody's texting the stupid picture of me and my thong. I was mortified. Absolutely mortified. Turned out to be, a funny haha joke that people would not stop joking about for years to come. For years to come. For me, that was a very embarrassing moment. For others, it was a talking point of conversation. It's kind of like when your zipper's open. I know that's happened to many of us. I don't know if that's so much as an embarrassing moment or just, like awkward. So, talking about awkward. What about that awkward hello when you don't know if you're supposed to shake someone's hand or give them a high five or a hug or a kiss? And I'm sure that the other person feels the same way. This has happened to me where you kind of think that the person is engaging or kind of moving a little more towards you. So my instinct immediately would be, oh, okay, they want to give me a hug or a kiss. So, oh, God, help me. I'm at a gathering because of a death. There was a death and we had to go to a shiva. And I had not met the man whose father passed away. He is a friend and client of my husband's. Needless to say, never met him. Went to his home. Was introduced to him by my husband, and he made a motion towards me. And I'm like, okay. And so I made an equal motion and then kind of dove in and gave him like a kiss on his cheek. And I'm like, what the fuck? What did you just do? You gave this man a kiss at his father's shiva. And I'm like, you stupid idiot. And you knew this man was like, what the hell? Now, come on, I know that's happened to you where you're just like, what do I do? Do I Do I shake their hand? Do I fist pump them, hug them, give them a kiss? I don't know what to do. Has that happened where you've just been in that kind of awkward, embarrassing situation? Yeah, it's not only happened to me, but I wound up doing something that I probably should not have done. Oh, for goodness sake, I tell you, some of these things are so funny. It really makes you think about some of the things that you've done. What about, I'm trying to think of some more embarrassing moments. Has there ever been a time where you might have said something that you shouldn't have said when you had a little too much to drink? And it might have been something that you've wanted to say for a long period of time but held back and maybe didn't even remember saying it until the next day when a friend of yours said, I can't believe that you said that. And now you're screwed because you said the one thing that you did not ever want to say. Yeah, that's happened to me. But the thing of it is I've never drank so much to the point where I've said things I didn't want to say. But all that means to me is that I probably wanted to say it. Right? I mean, if it came out, then there's got to be a reason why I said it. And the fact that, like, I didn't really remember, I guess it means I was a little drunk. But what have you done that while you're alone in your home that you would be incredibly embarrassed about if someone walked in on you and saw? Would it be dancing? Would it be singing? Would it be, oh, I don't know, doing a TikTok? What has happened to you to where you would be embarrassed if somebody walked in on you and you thought you were alone? I know that we've all been there. I know when I was a kid that there were things that I did when maybe my mom would walk in. But what about you? Have you ever been in a situation where you were alone? And we all know that when we're alone, we're totally ourselves. You know, we could do anything, we can say anything, we can act any way we want. But as soon as a person is there, all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm so embarrassed. All right, what else? I have some cute stories that I could read to you that can probably represent some things that, you know, have happened to us. Have you ever walked a dog to maybe meet a woman or a man, and as you are there talking to that man or woman, the dog poops right then and there? And here you are trying to like make an impression, and well, the dog just went to the bathroom right there in front of him. What a way to really warm up to that person. Oh, for goodness sake, I think that's so funny. Have you ever tried to walk by someone that you know and act like you don't even know them? Can I tell you how many times that has happened to me where I've lived over the last 19 years? And then I'm thinking, wow, this person really doesn't like remember me. Oh no, they remember you. They're just deliberately trying to act like they don't. Or people that know you and like deliberately try to avoid you. Don't you feel uncomfortable when they do that? Or do you feel like, what the hell? Or do you not care? Oh, that's happened to me a few times. And I've actually done that, you know, in order to try and maybe avoid somebody or avoid a 20-minute conversation. You try and like go the other way. Okay. Have you ever bumped into someone that you know, and now you have to start up, you know, a conversation, and you feel so awkward and embarrassed because you have not seen or spoken to this woman in a long time, and you know that person is thinking that, and you could just tell that they want to ask, you know, what happened to our friendship, what, you know, and then you do the small talk and, oh, we should, you know, get together. Have you ever had that situation? Does that make you feel embarrassed or feel a little, I don't know, awkward? Have you ever, when you were younger or maybe going to college, have you ever walked into the wrong class and realized that you were in the wrong class and now you have to get up and walk out when the teacher is teaching and you could hear a pin drop? What about sitting in a quiet room? Has that ever happened to you where you were in a quiet room and maybe you had to burp? And you know it's going to be so loud. I remember I was watching the movie Titanic when it first came out, and when Jack and Rose were in the freezing cold water, and like I said before, you could hear a pin drop, and I had to sniffle so bad because I was crying, and when I did, it was like it echoed. Everyone could hear it. I felt like there was a spotlight on me, like I was the only one in the movie theater that was crying. Oh my God, have you ever? I should just call this podcast Have You Ever? Maybe I will. Had a stain or gotten a stain on a shirt, like a really, really bad stain when you were maybe on a date and there was nothing you could do about it and you had that stupid stain on you for the rest of the date. What about having armpit stains? Ugh. In a shirt or on a shirt. Has that ever happened to you? I've never had armpit stains, but I know some people that have. For some reason, I do not like armpit stains, and nor do I like wet underarm shirts. Shirts that are like wet under the arms. That I would imagine would be a little bit uncomfortable, especially as a woman. Like you raise your hands up if you're at a party and you want to dance or whatever, and all of a sudden it's like, you got wet underarms. Oh, what about, I was just thinking of this one. What about the white deodorant on like a black shirt? Oh my God, how many times has that happened to me when I would put on a shirt after the deodorant and the stupid deodorant would get on the shirt, but I wouldn't see it right away. It wasn't until moments later that it would eventually start to appear, and I wouldn't even look at myself in the mirror at that point because I didn't think that anything was there. And then I would go out and a friend or a boyfriend would say, your deodorant is like all over the front of your shirt. Okay, live and learn. What do I do now? Put deodorant on after the shirt is on. Live and learn. Okay. Have you ever laughed at something you shouldn't have laughed at? I remember being somewhere and I got a little bit high with a friend of mine, and we were sitting around a bunch of other women, maybe like a total of 8 other women. And she and I were kind of in our own little zone and having our own conversation, and we were giggling. And then to the left of me were the rest of the women, and apparently we're talking about something with one of the women, who was very upset about a loss. And I did not know this at the time, and so me and this other girl are laughing, and I just let out this loud burst of laughter. And to the left of me, all the women started staring at me, and they all got quiet, and I'm like, what? Well, I had then found out that the one woman was talking about her father passing away, and, she was very upset about it, and there was a whole, drawn-out story going on, and here I am, like, laughing, and I not only felt embarrassed, but I felt awful, but how was I supposed to know? I'm having a totally separate conversation with another woman. I didn't know what was going on. And of course I apologized to her, telling her I did not even know you were talking about it. Oh, and she laughed it off and she was fine about it. But at that moment, I was mortified. Has that ever happened to you when you laughed at something and you wound up embarrassing yourself because it was not like the proper situation? Or what is that kind of laughter called? When you maybe have anxiety or you're fearful, and you accidentally laugh, but it's like a nervous laughter. Oh my gosh. Have you ever gotten dressed in the morning and realized that you were either wearing 2 different socks or that your shirt was inside out? Yep. All the time. When I used to work at the high school, I was up at 5 o'clock in the morning. And there were definitely a bunch of times when I had my underwear on the wrong way, or I had a shirt on inside out, or I wound up picking out the wrong socks. I know that's happened to some of us, not all of us, but some of us, or maybe something a little bit more similar to that. So, have you ever asked someone to repeat themselves, and then you had to ask them to repeat themselves again because you just didn't get it the first 3 times? Has that ever happened to you? I know that's not such a big embarrassing, type of thing, but when you can't maybe understand a person, maybe they have a slight accent, and you're now asking them to repeat themselves like for the 3rd time because you have no idea what they're saying, and now they're getting annoyed and you're feeling awkwardly embarrassed. Yeah, that's definitely happened to me before. Let's see. Have you the handicap buttons that you can press when you are, let's say, leaving a mall or a department store, and you can press the button and the door will automatically open. Have you ever tried doing that and it doesn't open, and you're just standing there waiting for the door to open, and it turns out that it's not going to open? Or when you're standing by what you think are automatic doors that are going to just part separately so you can walk through, and it turns out that they're not automatic doors, and you're standing there like a schlump waiting for them to separate. Has that ever happened to you before? I am certain that some of these things have happened to some of you. I know that I can't just be the only person, but when they happen, I'm wondering if possibly maybe we shouldn't get so embarrassed over it. Maybe we can start laughing this stuff off, and maybe just make fun of ourselves in a way where we don't have to become so self-conscious, of things that we do that maybe are embarrassing. I think that it's really more fun to laugh at ourselves than to be embarrassed. But it happens. There are things that happen that really are truly embarrassing. And then when you try and act like it's no big deal, when you really truly think that it's no big deal, then you have the other people thinking, oh, she's trying to act like it's no big deal when it kind of is an embarrassing situation. I think the best thing to do is just confront the situation, become a fan of yourself and say, okie dokie, so I'm now going to confront this major screw up that I could be potentially embarrassed about, and then just use it as a memory, a funny, fun memory that you can not feel awkward or embarrassed about anymore. And it's okay to be imperfect, because we all are. We have to, I think, laugh at ourselves a lot more and not worry what other people think of ourselves or think of us. I think it's important to just start laughing things off. I think we all need a lot more laughter, in our lives now more than, I don't know, ever before. But was there ever a time that you were feeling embarrassed at school or maybe at work? I'm sure that there are times when things like that might have happened. And it's funny because when I think back to some of the things that I did as a kid, how is it that the adults that I was around were totally cool about it and maybe kind of understood that I was a kid? Because when I think back to those things that I did and how embarrassing they were at the time, weren't the adults embarrassed for me? Why is it that my brain remembers embarrassing moments more than almost anything else? I mean, there's such unpleasant situations where you have this fear of the moment, and it just kind of finds itself a lovely little home in your brain and starts to bring it up every so often. And it could be really traumatic for some people, certain embarrassing moments, and we wind up getting our adrenaline all pumped up, and all it does is heighten our awareness as to, how embarrassing that was. But I think now, as I'm older, I still get embarrassed, but I think that I have a tendency of kind of laughing at myself now more than feeling the full extent of that, cringeworthy, embarrassing feeling. I think that it's much easier when you get older to learn to laugh at yourself and laugh at those moments than to feel awkward or embarrassed or cringeworthy. So, hey guys, I think that we all need to just start laughing at ourselves and not care so much about embarrassing or cringeworthy moments and just live, love, and laugh, I hope you like this podcast, guys. I am going to be counting down 2020 because I know that you all want to have a reminder of this amazing year. But I am going to do a countdown of the good times and the fun times because there were some. And I want to be a happy reminder of those moments that we did have in 2020 before it ends and we can all hopefully start a new year with a fresh start. So anyway, happy hump day to all of you. I hope you enjoy the rest of your week and have a most enjoyable weekend.